I grew up in a Christian home and I've always believed in God and Jesus, and I always went to church and I always prayed, but I didn't quite trust God, particularly when it came to relationships, and I was determined to do things my own way. As a teenager and an adult, I still prayed, I still went to church, but sometimes when I was praying, I prayed with a blanket over my head because I was ashamed. I knew I was living a life that wasn't pleasing to God. By my early 20s, I looked like I was living the dream. I had a successful career, a picture-perfect wedding and marriage, but my marriage was not a dream. I was in an abusive marriage, and everything that God allows for divorce was happening in my marriage. Eventually, I switched off my feelings just to cope with the situation. One day I was reading a book about relationships and what God had intended for marriage, and I was hit with this grief as I realized what I had cheated myself out of. I realized then why God had the guidelines that He did, and I was so sorry that I had gone my own way instead of following His way. And my relationship with God really changed from that point. One day when I was praying, I got this picture of me in a prison cell, but the prison door was open, and I crept towards the door and looked out, and there was no one there. The coast was clear. I realized God was saying to me that He'd come to set me free. He never planned for me to live in a prison, and that He had just been waiting for me all this time to say, please rescue me. Leaving my marriage was the hardest thing I've ever done in my life. I didn't know what would become of us. I didn't know what was going to happen, and it felt like jumping off a cliff. But I knew that Jesus was going to catch us. My 7 years as a single mum were really difficult times, and sometimes it was like living in a nightmare. But Jesus was there every step of the way, and I just drew close to Him that whole time. And I got to see Him look after us, provide for us, and just be our everything. And I look back on that time with such thankfulness, because that's the time my relationship with Jesus really grew. Jesus took away my shame, my guilt, my fear and mistakes, and He replaced it with acceptance and life and second chances and forgiveness. It took me a long time to be able to ask Jesus for another husband. I felt that I'd made my mistake and I didn't deserve a second chance. But Jesus showed me that when He forgives completely, and He doesn't hold my mistakes against me. Now I am married again to my husband Thomas, who is an amazing man who loves Jesus and serves Jesus. And together we get to raise our children, our daughters who are teenagers now, and our son. And I get to do that with a godly man by my side. And our home is a haven for me now. It's a place of joy and safety, and we get to raise our kids and see them developing their own relationship with Jesus. And I know that He's got good plans for all of us. I'm so thankful that Jesus never gave up on me, and for His forgiveness and His love.